Hi, and welcome to Live with Carlos Clanton. I am Carlos Clanton, your host, and the Ward 3 member of the Norfolk City School Board, where I am student-centered and teacher-inspired. And I'm happy to have you all joining me today for a dynamic session that I hope will teach us, will help to enrich us and empower us to continue forward with great change in public education and as well as within our city. So for those who are joining us today, I'd like for you to be able to comment, to participate in the conversation. And you can do that by, I'm actually posting it in a comment section for you, but you can also do that via, there we go, Facebook and Twitter, as well as Instagram and YouTube. So hopefully you're following us there. In the comment section, if there's a question or anything that you would like to share with us, please add it there, and we will, in the second half of the hour, answer and respond to some of those questions and the things that you have there. So let me jump right in here. So two worlds collide to form a lifelong friendship. On February 24th, 1956, U.S. Senator Harry F. Byrd Sr. of Virginia declared a policy known as massive resistance against school desegregation. But legal precedent demanded action, and on May 1954, the Supreme Court of the United States of America ruled in a case called Brown versus Board of Education that racially segregated schools must end in the United States. After 3 years of court battles and determination by the Virginia governor at that time, Lindsay Almond Jr., not to open up schools, 17 Black students were admitted to Norfolk Virginia Schools. And on February 2nd, 1959, they were collectively known as the Norfolk 17. And so we have Dr. Patricia Turner, one of the Norfolk 17, and former Norfolk City Council member Randy Wright, each one who were world apart during this turbulent time, and they're going to share their experiences that have blossomed into a lifelong friendship. And so I'm going to bring them in right now to be a part of this conversation. I'm glad to have them. So we're welcoming Dr. Patricia Turner and the Honorable Randy Wright with us today. Welcome.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
And so from the struggle to overcome massive resistance to the Black Lives Matter movement today, their story and their experiences have something that's going to teach us all. And so, again, I'm so excited that you all are with me and participating this morning. And so I just want to jump right in. We've got an hour, and I want to make sure that we can absorb as much as possible about your experiences and what you have to share and your stories that people can definitely take away. So I like to start with, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I'm going to start with ladies first, Dr. Turner, and tell us about your professional career, your family. We'll get into the experiences as a member of the Norfolk 17 a little bit later. But Dr. Turner.
I am the oldest of 6 children, but during the time that my brother and I integrated Northview Middle, there were only 5 of us. Now, Dad was in the Navy. He was a submariner for 30 years. So he was in and out of the house because his deployment lasted 6 months at a time. And Mom has always been the backbone of the family. And now at 99, she's still the big boss. My brother still, I integrated the 7th grade with Claudia Wellington and Edward Jordan and LaVille Forbes. But that's not what we're discussing right at this moment. That was one mean boy. He tore my toys and everything. But yet, that's the way brothers act. Right, Randy?
That's true.
Yeah. Randy is a little controlling, and we'll talk about that later. But as I said, my mom has always been the backbone and still is.
Great. How about you, Councilman Wright?
Well, I was born in Norview, 971 Windward Road to be exact. I grew up there and started in Norview is the only structure in the city where you could go to Norview Elementary, Norview Junior High, and Norview High School. So you didn't change names anywhere in there, like for your middle school or for your elementary school or whatever else. And so I had the fortune of being able to walk to school all 12 years. Then the seventh grade came around. I was entering the seventh grade. The massive resistance took place, and so that started a whole new structure of how things were being done. But so I had to go to a tutoring group the first semester, and it was in, of all places, it was in 5 Points, and it was on the second floor of Byrd Brothers garage where they repaired cars underneath of us. But that's the cards that we were dealt with in order to go into to get the first semester, so that when we did start in January, that we would start where we were supposed to be at the second semester where we were. I guess I should skip back just a little bit more about myself, but I'll get to that in a minute. But so it was in the seventh grade when the massive resistance started and when it concluded. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, standing out there in front of the entryway to Norfolk Virginia High School when the 5 folks that Patricia's talking about that were walking in there. I remember in my class, aside from her brother, was Eddie Jordan was in my class as well, and Farrah was also in our class. So, but what I witnessed was just horrendous. I mean, it was just horrendous the way they were treated. It was treated like animals. They were spit at. They had chewing gum thrown at them. They did all of these things, and it was like actions of heathens, and it was really shameful. So watching that, I'm just thinking in my own self, this is just that you can't even, the word unfair doesn't even describe it, what they went through. So over a period of time, Patricia's brother, who we knew as Skip, they would call him James in the classroom, but I found out pretty early on that he wanted to be called Skip, and so him and I, forged a friendship, and you had to be careful to some extent out there, but just the fact that we crossed over as friends, I'm talking about when we're 12 years old. And so that carried through until we graduated from Norfolk High School in the same class. And then we fast forward to 1992 when I first got elected to Norfolk City Council. I was really proud of the fact that I was the first Norfolk High School graduate that ever got elected to Norfolk City Council. Now that goes all the way back to 1922. So that was 70 years there, unlike Maury, which we can talk about that later, right? But anyhow, so one of the first phone calls that I got was from Skip, and he just wanted to congratulate me for being the first Norview graduate to ever get on city council. And so we talked for a good while, and so I said to him, I said, everybody's giving me advice. Do you have any advice for me? And he said, Randy, just be yourself. Just be yourself. And that could not have been better advice than anybody could have given to me. And so that was really special. And then as time went on, Skip passed away. And so out of that, I gained a sister, and Patricia regained a brother.
Exactly, which kind of leads me into my next piece, which is how, how this unique connection is there. So I guess it's through Skip, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we shared a brother for a number of years. I think that's a fair statement to make.
Yeah.
And so I guess through your brothers, I mean, how did you all specifically meet? Is there a particular instance that you all met?
Well, there were a lot of little short blemish, short time we'd meet, and we would talk, and I knew where she lived over Coronado, and I walked over there on multiple occasions that you could do that. So yeah, we would see each other and always say hi and hello and whatnot. And there was a couple of classes that Skip and I sat in, and we were right beside each other in high school. His grades were better than mine. I'll profess that much. He was an A student. I was a struggling B student, but but he wouldn't let me cheat off his papers either. I got to tell you that. But anyway, so we got to know each other pretty well all the way through high school, and up until Patricia graduated, we would run into each other in the hallway or something, and say hi and wave and that sort of thing. And so the relationship just sort of, but it grew as time went on, and particularly after Skip's death, and we each filled a void for one another. And to this day, it's a very special one. And I don't mind telling anybody, I love her like a sister. I really do. I mean, there's very few people in the world that I would go help move from one side of town to the other, physically move. So then if my sister called me and said, I need your help, I said, I'll be there. So, but we can kid each other. What's really been missed in a whole lot of this is that you can treat each other like a sister or like a close friend without the fear that the race card is going to enter into. And that's sort of what's happened in this world today, is that, I wouldn't treat her any different than my biological sister. And I don't see my biological one near as much as I get to see Patricia. And so I'm gonna treat her the same. And that's where we've got to, get to. And I think we've really made some progress in that realm, but there's more work to be done.
Definitely. And this is great. And I when I think about it, because I remember hearing your story for the first time, and Dr. Turner, you definitely explaining that. But I'm gonna come back to this. I'm gonna pivot back, because I think that Dr. Turner has you were sharing with me, because a lot of people know you as a member of the Norfolk 17, but you did have a professional profession that it didn't take you too far away from the school system. You actually were an educator in Norfolk Public Schools. So can you talk about that, your experience and your commitment and connection? Because several of your students are hopping on now.
That's wonderful. I'm quite sure that my students will agree that I was sweet and nice and just a wonderful teacher. And I can just see them shaking their heads now. But I was loving, and they knew that when they came to my class, they would love. Uh-oh.
Oh, you good.
I saw something pop up. But I didn't play. I told them, I can't make you learn. But if you don't come in here with my homework done, you better find a friend. And during that time, as of today, and I've seen the young men want to show you their underwear. I didn't approve of that. So I could hear them around the corner. Hey, man, I think she's standing at her door. You better pull your pants up. But I would not let them in my room unless they gave me a reason better than my dog ate it. They had to do their homework. So I didn't allow D's or E's. Unless you were sick, I would excuse you. I would allow you extra time with me. So I guess I was a little strict. Is that what it's called?
I think accountable. You were that accountability partner for a lot of students there, and I asked this question in this respect, Dr. Turner, for what you saw from the time that you were a student in Norfolk Public Schools, because you taught at Lake Taylor Middle School, Lake Taylor School now, and then Blair, right?
No, I taught at Lake Taylor, Rosemount. Then they sent me to Blair, and I think they forgot me there because I was spending like 2 years at Lake Taylor, 2 years at Rosemount. I got to Blair, and they must have forgot me. They left me there for 16 years.
But as the and I think in our conversations, I just missed you. I was on my way to Maury High School when you started your first year at Blair Middle. But even through that time, and I mean, there's been some decades there. What have you seen or noticed the change from the time that you were in school to the time you retired?
Okay, now today they have bullying, and
Mhm.
it is not a race thing because someone can look just like you and bully you.
Mhm.
But the children of the day need to understand. And I have started saying this now when I go out and speak. When do I get to breathe?
Mhm.
How do I prove to you that just because I'm brown and you're not, that I am as smart as you are? After all, to go to the eighth grade, I had to pass three tests: eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade. I had to go to a psychiatrist. I had to be interviewed by the school board. I was scared to death. No one wanted me at Northview. The students, the principal, even the school board. But I succeeded. Why can't you?
Mhm.
Education is the key to success. Make your mark by education, and maybe one day you'll breathe.
Great words there. So, for both of you all through this time, I mean, massive resistance. I mean, I think everyone at some point, you would think everyone has heard about Brown versus Board of Education. But, you know, really during that period, Virginia shut down. I mean, it was, we are not going
Totally.
to integrate our schools. And
Exactly.
it was by force in some respect that, you know, Norfolk had to open their schools. And I understand there's a lost class who didn't go, you know, who, because everyone couldn't go to school. And then Dr.
Right.
Turner, you, along with the Norfolk 17 as a member, you all at First Baptist Butte Street. And
In
that's where you
Batesville.
all went to school for a period there. So, you know, in some respects, when I've looked at it, and I'm a lover and studier of history, I really think that you all and what you experienced in integrating our schools really became a pivotal change, a turning point in our city. It was not easy, but
No.
it definitely brought about some change. So, I mean, what do you take away as your perspective and you know, during this period, your experience?
Okay. During that period, it was extremely difficult, but God chose the 17 to
Mhm.
do a job, and He never left us. Now, we did have some support, which were our ministers and family and some people in our neighborhoods. But Virginia turned their backs on us. See, we integrated schools in 1959.
Hmm.
That was before Dr. Martin Luther King. But Virginia told everyone, well, they had no problems at their schools and everything was wonderful and everything was fine. But it took them 50 years before they asked the 17 how it was.
Hmm.
Today, it's different. Today, we are still fighting.
Hmm.
Today, we're still asking, when do you let me realize? When do you understand I am no different than you are? You know, there's sometimes that I ask God, could you remove the top skin from everyone in the world?
Hmm.
And I leave it with that for you to think about it. How would the world be if we all looked the same?
That's that's a good point. That's a very good point. So, how about you, Councilman Wright? What do you think your perspective taking away from that period of time?
Um, just the transition that took place. You know, again, I'll repeat that. You know, I saw how it was just sickening how they were treated. But at the end of the day, you know, I mean, Patricia and the rest of the Norfolk 17, I mean, they were the true forebearers of civil rights in this country. And if you didn't know it, but North Carolina was 10 years behind Virginia,
Hmm.
and going through the integration that we had already gone through here a decade ahead of time. You know, and we can just change I don't know how you change what's inside of somebody is the same. The pigmentation of the skin shouldn't matter. We need to look at each other as fellow Americans, fellow fellow people that look at one another in the same light. And I think we've made a lot of progress, because back then, had it not been for the efforts of the Norfolk 17, the Norfolk school system would not be where it is today, and that's for sure.
Definitely. So, and I appreciate both of your all's perspectives there, and so I'll ask this, Dr. Turner. Definitely, you've been a teacher in our schools, and myself as a school board member, I've heard it. In 2015, the school board adopted an equity policy, and for many, in full transparency, I attended Larchmont and Taylor and Blair and Morey High School, which in other words, people would say was on West Side schools. But I lived in the Park Place and Lambert's Point communities, and because of the way we drew boundaries and busing and so forth, that's how I ended up going to those schools. But many people still think that there's a large amount of inequities within our school division, as far as resources, as far as teaching staff and so forth. So what are your perspectives on that? How do you feel? Have we we move beyond race in some respect, but there's still inequities that are still existing within our school division?
Well, I feel this way. I know that some people, well, I also, in a way, understand why the names of schools are bothering them. My question to everyone that doesn't look like me: how long are you going to honor slavery? How long does it take you to understand people are people, no matter what the color of their skin, no matter how they got to America? This is my home. I would love to go to Africa to see how it is, but I've never been there. So from back the day, they used to tell me go back to Africa. How can I go back to Africa when I belong to the United States? My dad was born here. My mom was born here. My grandfather was born here, because my grandmother on my dad's side was born in Germany. So maybe she could go back to Germany, and then I wouldn't exist, and I wouldn't have Randy as my brother, which is very depressing.
Definitely. So we've got a question from Miss Taylor, Gail Taylor. She says, do you see the public school system as fully integrated today?
It's integrated as far as the students are concerned. Mm-hmm. As far as their minds are concerned, no. I think that the zoning has blocked more integration. Mm-hmm. But how many people live in Norfolk? We've got to have different schools. You can't pile them all in the same school as mm-hmm. they used to do. That factory of Booker T. So in a way, yes, and in a way, no. And good morning, Gail.
How about you, Councilman Wright?
Well, I would say, with all of the progress that has taken place, I believe that any African American child that wants to succeed in Norfolk Public Schools, that opportunity is there. That wasn't always the case, but it is now. And and I think if there is a difference that you were talking about as far as supplies or whatnot go, that would go back to the schools that have really active PTAs that raise money for special type items and stuff. I know I went through it when my biological son graduated from Norfolk Public Schools. He started out in Tarleton Elementary, went to Blair, and then graduated from Lake Taylor High School. And now I'm going through the sequence again with my grandson, who's gone from Tarleton Elementary, so some of the schools, particularly the predominantly white schools, have more participation, unfortunately, in the PTAs and raising those monies. And I mean, I think that's something that maybe as we've moved into this Black Lives Matter thing, that maybe more parents will get involved. And I know that the percentages of single woman head of household is much larger in the Black community than it is in the white community. But you got to put that aside. You have to go beyond that. And I think that, if they can get more active, and I remember back 20 years or so ago, I was just got on city council, and I heard about what Herman Clark was doing over in Bowling Park Elementary School, and I wanted to go over there, and I just quietly would go over there regularly, and became good friends with the principal. And I mean, and the things that he did that brought in, they brought in women that could sew, that could fix their clothes and their hygiene and make them feel better about it. I mean, those are little things, but little things mean a lot. And I think that, that's one of the missing components, is that you don't have the activity that he brought to that school within the African American community that wanted to participate. So is that a color thing? Not necessarily. It's just a thing of we've got to motivate them that their children, need all the help that they can get. You can't depend 100% on the school system. It's not fair.
Yeah. So I just placed a hashtag that's been used, and it's something that I'm using as a mantra, even in our current present time, and that's "We are in this together." Even with the pandemic, everything that's going on around us, and I think that you all bring up some important points. I had my very first guest for my live show was Sharice Newsom, who is president of the Norfolk Council of PTA. And under her leadership, along with her team, and they are rebuilding the PTA here in Norfolk, which is a vital organization to help support and to connect, parents along with our schools. Because even at the school board level and, and that administration, is challenging just trying to get the message out. I mean, I'm still getting folks to ask me right now, are raising concerns that kids don't have devices to prepare for the fall semester, but the message has gone out 4 times. And so it's like constantly repeating, making sure that we can meet folks where they are, and to make sure that everybody has the necessary resources. And so I learned a long time in the respect that there's a difference between equity and equality. And, in the respect that everybody has the same thing across the board. But in Norfolk, we realize that some of our communities need additional resources. They need additional support in order to meet the challenges that community and those individuals are facing. And so I know that even right now with this pandemic, there's some things that many individuals are probably going, how am I going to take care of my child? How do I get them prepared for this? What are some of the social and emotional things that our kids are dealing with being isolated in the home and not interacting with folks? So I'd say all of that to my viewers who are watching here, that I do have a series of these live shows that are going to start up next week. They're going to address those issues. How do we prepare our kids to get ready for school this fall in a virtual environment? So I appreciate you all sharing in that. And so I know that individuals have been putting comments in, and I encourage you to do that. If you have a comment or something that you want to share with us, I encourage you to do that. You can do that in the comment section there. You can do that on YouTube Live if you're watching there, as well as on Periscope. And again, for those who are joining us right now, I've got none other than the wonderful, dynamic Dr. Patricia Turner, who is a member of the Norfolk 17. And I think, Dr. Turner, you told me that there are still 10 living members of the Norfolk 17, correct?
There are 9 now.
Now, yep.
Yes, we just lost Lewis.
Lewis Cousins was we just lost him, and he integrated Maury High School, and you saw the picture of him. I couldn't have these 2 Norview graduates here and not give homage to my Commodore in Lewis Cousins. And we have none other than former Norfolk City Council member, the Honorable Randy Wright, who I've known you, Councilman, for years, especially my time when I was serving as director of the Chamber of Commerce here in Norfolk.
Yeah.
But have really gotten to know you over the years, and your love and compassion for the community. And I remember you invited me 2 years ago to your holiday event, and that's where I heard this story for the first time. I had never knew about this. I knew of Dr. Turner, but I did not know the connection that you all had. And I remember, Dr. Turner, you shared a story with everyone in regards to when you held Randy's hand up. Do you want to share that?
Yeah.
Yes. It was it was an awful day, and Randy and Ken Whitley, they took a chance. My brother had been, I guess you say, abused today instead of saying beaten, and they helped him. Ken came and got me. Randy stayed with my brother, and I've loved him since then. You know, it's something about a bond when someone takes a chance on their life for you that cannot be broken. Mm-hmm. So I love you, Randy.
Yeah. Well, I think that, what she had to say that day was, really, it really struck me when Patricia took my hand at the Christmas party and she said, Dr. Martin Luther King had a dream that one day little black boys and white girls and vice versa can walk to school and hold hands together. And this is something that we haven't been able to do for 60 years. And she lifted my hand up. I'm gonna do it right now. And there was not a whole lot of dry eyes in the place with that, because I think that was about as profound as you could say it. Couldn't do that 60 years ago, but we could do it now, and we did do it. And and we talked about it ahead of time, and she said, "What do you want me to say?" And I said, "I just want you to speak from the heart. That's all." I've been to her church on numerous occasions, and we wanted to. The anniversary of the 60th anniversary was the place and time that we needed to do this, and we had something like 450 people that were there, and so this was really speaking to what I would say is probably the most inclusive party that takes place anywhere in Norfolk. I mean, we have people there of all colors. We have people there who are wealthy to some extent. We have people there that worked hard. It's a mirror of the city of Norfolk that's there, and it really meant a lot to me that she was willing to step up there and do that in front of everybody. And I was just grinning big time. I thought that was special. So that did happen. I'm glad that you were there too.
I'm glad, and for everyone who didn't know, this year I missed it, and that was only because I was exhausted and I overslept. Well, but I will be there next year.
Okay, this year, you mean this coming year?
This year coming up, 2020.
Yeah. So I did one thing I did want to add real quick. When I graduated from Norview, I took just a little bit about myself. I took print shop in at Norview in my junior year, and I had one of my friends talk me into doing it. He says, "Why don't you take print shop?" Because I had to have another class and in my general curriculum. And so he moves over the summer, and I'm signed up for print shop, and I'm going in print shop, and I don't have a clue. And so it didn't start out real well for me. But by the time the second year rolled around, I was spending 3 classes a day in the print shop, and I knew this is what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. And my teacher at that time, he was tough. He was hard nosed. He prepared you. So I went out of there. I went to work in a commercial print shop. I also took on a 5-year diploma to get for learning the trade, and this was something that the state set up. And so within getting this diploma, I had to go to night school for 5 years, and I went to night school, and ironically, one of those years it was at Maury High School. So as I think back, I actually did have a little bit of something at Maury High School. Yeah, but that's true. We had theorem on one night, and then we'd go into a print shop on the other night that we did there. But so I had a 5 year, what in today's world would be something like an associate's degree is what I did, and then I started working towards having my own business, which I did, and so point is, I was a blue collar. My ancestry is Irish, and some of my ancestors came over on ships and were indentured servants for a period of time. That's not to say that it was anywhere near as bad as what the slave went through, but I'm just saying that the things, there are some mutual tracks of our lives together, of how that happens. But so I was proud of my 18 years on city council. Took on a lot of tough issues. Didn't duck anything, and I had a really strong relationship with the black members of council, particularly Paul Riddick. A lot of people didn't understand how we got along so well, but we did, and we still do. So it was quite a journey. I'm fortunate enough to do a lot of other things. I was a national chair of transit board members for 3 years across North America that helped bring light rail to the city of Norfolk. So just a few of the things that I was able to help accomplish. But we said nobody does anything by themselves, but there are things that won't happen without a certain person. See, and that's kind of what we have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So,
no doubt. So you mentioned these parallels and similarities. So it kind of leads me to my next question that I have for both of you all, and that's we've lost many great leaders of the civil rights movement, recently, such as Congressman John Lewis and the Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian. Even celebrated the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that we need to get reauthorized. But looking at your experience and looking at what we see today with the Black Lives Matter movement, what similarities or differences have you noticed?
Well, I guess I would say that it's much more, I'd say, pervasive in the sense that there is unabashed in terms of protesters. I understand why they're doing it, and some of them are doing it, and the sense of how they feel about it. But nothing replaces personal relationships, and I don't know how much that is evolving out of the protesting that's taking place. And unfortunately, there are incidents that happen at the conclusion of them that nobody is proud of, not even those that have been marching in it for damages done to people's property, etc. But I'll go back to in the days of deintegration. It was a long period of time there before blacks and whites would sit with one another in the cafeteria. I know Dr. Turner saw that probably more so than myself did, but so we were at a point where we were forcing children to go from one side of town to another in order for them to build a bridge. But that bridge stopped when the time became their own, and that was with who you want to sit with when you're having lunch. Who do you want to run with when you're out there at recreation? And so when that changed, Carlos, that changed when people like myself befriending and Skip befriending me. That's how the change takes place. You build these personal relationships, and sometimes you got to let them do it on their own. It's not like we got to force feed and say, well, you've got to go and you've got to go and meet and you've got to talk to, and you're going to sit beside so and so because I said so. I mean, we're a little bit smarter than that. I think the people that reach out I mean, this whole world, as far as a lot of success goes, is how you relate to people and building up relationships. And that's the thing that is that I see missing today. They're not reaching for what I think made a difference 60 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years, 30 years ago. And now it's so much easier for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we've got to move this thing.
Definitely.
Well,
How about you, Dr.?
to me, look at the marchers in John Lewis' time when they were trying to cross the bridge.
Yeah.
The marchers were all Black.
Mm-hmm.
Doing Black Lives Matters, look at the marchers. Time is changing. It's just on a snail's pace. And one day, I may not be here. I may be like Dr. Martin Luther King. I won't be able to see the change. But by him making his statement of a Black boy and a white girl holding hands to the mountain, I know change is coming.
Mm-hmm.
It has to come. It has no choice.
Carlos, I'll give you an example of something that happened to me back in the 1980s. And the Reverend Jesse Jackson was running for president. You'll remember that, I'm sure. He came to Norfolk, and I actually had a private lunch with him. That was Bishop Willis set it up. And I had a chance to sit and talk to him for an hour plus. It was only like 1, 2, 3, 4, no more than 5 of us in the room. So a lot of this stuff does go on and happens, and I think it's more successful if it's not so blown like we all got to be on, CNN or Fox or whatever else. You can come to these things and back when also in the 80s when Norfolk was striving towards moving at-large elections to ward system elections, and I was involved in that quietly behind the scenes, and I was registered as a friend of the court to speak on behalf of the ward system. And there was a group of us that met for weeks and months, quietly and privately over at ODU. And so there are ways to get things done. And you don't have to be out there waving flags and jumping up and down. That's the point I'm trying to make. There are ways to get things done, and we need to push that side of the ledger in tandem with what's going on.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I'm actually bringing this up here. Activism, advocacy, and policy. For many who don't know, I'm the former national president of the National Urban League Young Professionals, one of our leading national civil rights organizations. And what I see now with Black Lives Matter is really activism. When you see the protests, you see individuals who are coming out together. And I even will go back to Dr. Turner in the respect when you talked about John Lewis and the crossing of the George Pettis Bridge. I have, in my time, my 4 years in serving, 6 years on the national board, I have been to Central High School twice. In Little Rock. I was there at the 50th March of the in Selma, Alabama, and watched John Lewis and President Obama and others walk hand in hand there. But when you look at even in Selma, Alabama, you're right. The first time they walked across the bridge, it was all Black, but it took America to see. The cameras came out and to see these African Americans, these Blacks, getting beat down by state troopers, that you then have members of clergy, Black, white, all different faiths coming together, and they march together across that. And that's a monumental and important fact for people to realize, is that we're in this together. And that's one of the things that I can see as a similarity right now between the Black Lives Matter movement and what you see that's going on, is that it's not just a single umbrella of Black Lives Matter. It is multiple different individuals who are coming out together, speaking out, and they're showing through activism. But this is where I encourage about the advocacy and the policy. And Councilman Wright, as a member of City Council, this is important when your constituents and other individuals called you, sent you messages, showed up to meetings, showed up and spoke during the public comment. That's your activism. And most importantly, helping elected officials to identify policy changes. And that's why it's so important to hear from constituents and hear from individuals who are being affected by certain things, because that's the only way that things actually happen. You've got to bring it forth. So it's a three-legged stool, and all of them work together in tandem, and all of them have a part in the process. Would you not agree?
I agree with that.
Yes, I would like to say one thing. Back in '59, when I integrated the schools and no one wanted me there, my classmates of 1963, they have given me my own prom. They take me to Nag's Head.
Mm-hmm.
They treat me like I'm a queen. I don't know who did what to me in '59, but they know. They
Right.
remember
That's right.
what they did. And I don't care who did what. God taught me forgiveness. This is what the world needs. Overlook the past, but don't forget it. Work on change. Use the people that are in power who can make the change. They are people just like you. Get to know Carlos. He's on school board. He's open to you. Get to know the governor. Alexander is there for you. You want change? Do it the right way and it will happen. Nothing wrong ever occurs with violence. Love each other. It's the word of the world. God taught you love. I don't see Randy as some white boy. I see him as my brother. I know I can go to him. I know I can hug him. I know that Arlene will welcome me to their house many times.
Right.
And that puppy loves me. As soon as I see it, it sits on my lap.
Yeah, it's
Well,
true.
This is love. This is love.
now. We're about 3 minutes in, but I want to put this last question out here. I'm actually putting it in the comment section now, and I'm going to bring it up for those and ask you to participate. But I've got a survey, and I've been asking, and we kind of alluded to this earlier about the naming of these schools. And so I'm going to post this up here. Tell me what you think. Do you support changing the school names of Morey, Ruffner, and Taylor? And in the comment section, I've actually put the link so you can actually participate. It's going to ask you for your name and your email, but your response is anonymous. That just places you in to receive additional contact information from me. But there's been a significant move across the country to rename symbols of the Confederacy, monuments, buildings, schools, etc. Many believe they perpetuate hate and hold on to a time long past. As you know, Norfolk historians and the pilot have even identified 3 Norfolk schools that have Confederate names, and that being W.H. Taylor, Taylor being in many respects, the right-hand man to Robert E. Lee, Ruffner Academy, who was the first state superintendent of public education in the Commonwealth of Virginia, who was appointed by Robert E. Lee. And then, of course, my alma mater in the respect of Matthew Fontaine Morey and Morey High School. And he was Commodore. He was he charted the seas, but he had a long, glorious, and many scientific discoveries were credited to him. However, he left the Union to become stay with duty and to become a member of the Confederacy. So the school board at our July retreat acknowledged that we like to move forward with the exploration of renaming these schools. As individuals who are in the center of integrating these schools, what are some of your thoughts around this particular topic?
Well, first, I want to say this. I think a middle school and an elementary school is one thing. high school is another. I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
When I was vetted 6 years ago for the position of deputy director of the Virginia Lottery, I had to present my diploma from
Mhm.
high school. You don't have one from middle school. You don't have one from elementary. But imagine you fast forward and you've got people that are going to have to go through the process that Randy Wright went through, and you've got a diploma of a school that name doesn't exist anymore. I think that we need to just slow this down a little bit and really ask the people that are, meaning our children that are in there now, our children who have graduated from there in recent years,
Mhm.
and get their feelings on it. I think that's really important because I just think that we're overreacting too fast. I don't think. I would ask you, Carlos. You're on the school board. Do you think that the change in the name of the school is going to produce higher academic level in that school by the children?
Well, I myself personally, no, I don't believe that the name change does that. I think that there's a focus, and I think that they're two separate things. To be perfectly honest, I
Yeah.
believe that having high quality teachers, great leadership in the principals, and strong, rigorous academics that we're being taught, and that there's accountability with our students, that our students and any child can succeed. As long as we're giving them the necessary resources and the love and care and tough teachers like Dr. Turner, and many
Amen.
that I had,
Yeah.
to make sure that I did what I needed to do.
But,
However, on the opposite end, I do believe that there is that there are individuals, when we look at how these school names came about. I'm
yeah.
a proud Commodore. When I walked the halls of Maury High School, I was proud to be at
Right.
Maury. My mother went to
Right.
Maury. My aunt, my uncle, they all went to Maury High School. It was
Amen.
never about the name and the respect of Matthew Fontaine. Really, perfect honest, I didn't really pay attention to it until my
I didn't
graduation.
either.
Matter of fact, I've got here is my commencement form here, 98, and it says Matthew Fontaine on it. Matthew Fontaine is not on the outside of the school. It says Maury High School. So I do believe that there is that there's some validity. I do believe, like you said, we have to slow down and look at it. That we have to look at what does that really mean. There's costs right now. The division is looking at how much will it cost to rebrand, but I think what's happening inside of the schools is most important. But I don't dismiss individuals and their feelings about how about these buildings' names came. Maury High School was actually Norfolk High School before it became Maury High School. And so, I mean, I will work with my colleagues. I'll tell you right now, I am absorbing everything. I'm getting emails and letters and so much about this particular topic. And I've always been a person who leads and manages by fact and putting the information and listening to the people that it's going to vastly affect. So I think what you have said, Councilman, right, in the respect of listening to our community members. That's why I've been having this survey open, because I want to hear individuals, and it's very different. You hear one side, and then you have others, and then you have others that are in the middle. So I'm not quick to jump. I have a feeling about it, but I'm going to make a decision that's based on the information that's in front of me and what my constituents, because at the end of the day, it's not my school, it's not your school, it's all of our school, and every citizen who pays taxes here in the city of Norfolk. It's our school. And so listening to what the citizens want to do, it's going to be first and foremost. So Dr. Turner, I'm going to throw it back to you. I know we've talked. Anything you want to add in?
I feel this way. I understand that some people want the name changed, okay, and I understand why. I also understand and believe in my heart, you can change the name to Blue if you like blue. You need to change the ideas, the feelings, the hearts of the people inside the school. Because of the name of the school doesn't mean you have to teach hatred. Teach something different. Say, okay, this school was named so and so back in so and so, but we are going to call ourselves Commodores because that means commander and it means equality to all.
Well,
change
and I
the
think that's
people
great. And I think
inside.
Gail Taylor adds she gives a very strong example here, and she's in favor of renaming any facility that's named after a Confederate leader. And then she states that there's a reason that nothing bears the name Adolf Hitler. And you know, and that's where I understand that comment, and I understand the sides on both sides of this argument. When we start really looking at our schools and this renaming situation, but I know that the board probably won't begin to have any additional comments or conversation about this until October after we've opened school, because the first thing, first and foremost for us, is to ensure that we've got schools that are open in the respect of being able to provide learning, and that we've got a plan after the first 9 weeks of this virtual learning, if it is feasible for us to be able to move our students into a hybrid type of learning environment, that we're able to do that. But I will say this here, because we are at that time. I told y'all it was going to roll. But I definitely encourage anyone who's still watching, and I'm going to post it in the comments and sections here. Please share your comments with me. Please take the poll, share it with individuals that you know, because I want that information. And my thing is that I've always learned that even when people have differences of opinion and different experiences, what helps us when we can listen and to come together and to talk about those things, to figure out how we can find common ground to move forward. And so that's what I've been trying to do as a member of our school board. I know that Councilman Wright, that's what you did when you were on city council, and Dr. Turner, what you continue to do in your classrooms and throughout the community, to be a champion, to teach and educate individuals about what the Norfolk 17 did and what it meant to our community. And so I'm going to quickly at this point give you all some 60 seconds or less to go ahead and wrap it up and give any final thoughts. And so I'll start with the lady of the house, Dr. Turner, with you.
Okay, to my past students, hello, and no, I've never forgotten you. Please remember, and I've said it a million times, education is the key to success. Now, how you educate your child is up to you, but I'm asking you, teach them love for all.
All right, thank you. Councilman Wright.
I would just go back to what I mentioned when I talked to the graduating kids that from Norview last year, and that is that, dream. Don't be afraid to dream, because this country, you can do almost anything you want to, and don't ever think that anybody else is better than you. That's the most important thing. My mother used to tell me when we would see somebody, a male on there, and she'd say, you both still put your pants on the same way, and so that's where we need to be, and just say, look, just don't be afraid. You can be whatever you want to be. It's up to you.
Yeah, and so thank you all both for being with us today. I'm going to now give some final comments for everyone. And so again, for everyone who's watching, thank you for being a participant today and watching this. I thank Dr. Turner and Councilman Wright for being with us as well, and sharing. I want to remind you all to please go visit me on YouTube. You can like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Live with Carlos Clanton. So anytime that we're going live, as you know, I do updates. You can get notified as well about those various updates there. I alluded to it and I shared it in the respect that I am going to be doing a series of how do we get prepared back for school. And I'm going to be sharing information with that in regards to, mental health, resources that are out there in the community. The governor yesterday just received word and put out a press release about the eviction moratorium, and that the state Supreme Court has put out there. I'm going to be bringing in administrators from our school division. My objective as your member of the school board is to not only connect with you and to share invaluable resources through this pandemic, but always to be a resource to you. And so I'm sharing my contact information with you here, where you all can reach me. This is my school board cell phone number. Call, text, reach out to me, as well as my email. I am there to be a resource and being there to listen and to hear your voices as I continue to work to represent your voices on the Norfolk City School Board. Again, I thank you all for joining in today, and I thank our guest, Dr. Patricia Turner, and the Honorable Randy Wright for being with us. And so with that, I say thank you, and I will let us roll out with our with a nice video, because they really like the video there. So I'm going to put that back for you guys. But have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and